Greetings, salutations, and welcome to Sportslook, the sports television program for the high plains of West Texas and eastern New Mexico. I'm your host, Doc Elder, and to help get you in the mood to fill out your brackets later on this month of March, we're going to do a basketball-themed episode. I'm going to do a Zoom interview with Marvin Menzies, the former head men's basketball coach at New Mexico State University. We're going to do a Sportslook throwback episode with Mike McGuire talking to Sean Scanlon. All have a basketball-themed overtime. But I'm happy to say that after a 365-day absence, we're going to start out with an Eastern recap. Congratulations to the Greyhound baseball team. This past weekend, they got their first win of the season, a 6-5 decision in a 3-game series against Cameron University. And congratulations to the Greyhound women's rodeo squad. They took third place at the Odessa Rodeo. And best of luck to Greyhound softball. They have their first games of the season this weekend against Texas A&M Commerce. That has been your Eastern recap, so we'll clear the set and we'll do a Zoom interview with Marvin Menzies right now. Welcome back to Sportslook, and an honor to bring to Sportslook via Zoom the former head basketball coach at New Mexico State University, Marvin Menzies. And Coach, welcome to Sportslook.
Oh, good pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate the invitation.
Well, and Coach, I got out of my wardrobe the closest approximation I could to New Mexico State colors, so hopefully you feel a little more comfortable.
You could wear whatever you want, and I'm gonna be comfortable. I've been in a lot of different schools, so it all works for me.
Well, Coach, let's use that as a springboard for our first question. Where and when did your love for the game of basketball develop?
Wow, it's kind of an interesting story, actually. I was a cross country and track guy, and I did some football in my junior and senior year at Hamilton High School. So I was never really, I love basketball. That was like my first love as far as playing, but I just wasn't. I was vertically challenged and horizontally challenged as far as my speed as well. So that wasn't the sport I was going to reap any benefits from. So I kind of just did it for fun. We played a lot of pickup ball, and I had keys to the gym there at Hamilton High, and all of my buddies and I would get together in the evenings and play. But it wasn't until a couple of years after I graduated, I think it was 81, when one of my former coaches asked me to come out and just help him out with back then was called B and C bat. We had B, C, JV, and varsity. These are different financial times for after school sports, especially. So, so I just got an invitation, came out, and it was what I love to do. But then I kind of got into it because I was like, all right, I got to go learn this stuff if I'm going to teach it. And started working with some AAU programs and local, just different local clinics and camps and things of that nature, and got to a point where it was kind of a profession. It just morphed from high school. I got invited to work at Santa Monica College. And then that went on to Sacramento State, to San Diego State, to USC, to UNLV, to Louisville, back to New Mexico State, and then back to UNLV, and the list goes on. So it just kind of, I've never really hunted jobs. It was just, opportunities kept coming my way because of my love for the kids and my passion for giving back just kind of morphed into a profession. So I was really, really blessed in that regard.
Well, Coach, who have been the big influences on helping you become the coach that you became?
Wow, I've had several. I got to say, the guy that got me started, his name was Dave Ueshima, and he was a longtime coach at Hamilton High School in Los Angeles. But without his prodding of, hey, you'd be really good at this, I don't think I'd be doing what I'm doing today. So I got to thank Dave Ueshima every time we talk about, what my influences. But then as time went on, there were a lot of guys that were high level guys. John McMullen was a junior college coach forever at Santa Monica College and is Hall of Fame out there, won over 500-600 games. Was my second largest influence. And then kind of parlayed into every head coach that I had played a role in philosophically how I approach the game now. But I'd have to say that Coach Pitino kind of shaped me in the way of how to run a program. Um, Coach Steve Fisher at San Diego State was really pivotal in the teaching and the details, methodical in his explanation to the kids, and they really got it because he drilled it into them. He was a former math teacher, and it showed the way he coached the game. And then Lon Kruger's approach to family and team chemistry and culture was also influential. So I picked up a lot from a lot of different guys. So I'd have to say those last three were probably shaped the basketball part of it the most.
Well, obviously, there are many components to being a successful basketball coach. You've got to know the X's and O's. You've got to be a recruiter. You've got to be a motivator. And obviously, you were really good at all of those. But if you had to say there was one thing you were best at, what aspect of coaching is really your forte?
Well, it's interesting. There's a big perception, a large perception that most African American Black coaches are in the profession because of their recruiting abilities, and I'm good at that, and I enjoy it. There's no question. But I really think program culture and leadership as it relates to getting kids to buy in, staff to buy in. I just think philosophically, the way I approach running a program is the part that I enjoy the most because there's every year is a different puzzle, so you have different challenges and I love trying to figure out how to get the most out of everyone underneath my umbrella. So including myself. And so I think that's probably my one of my biggest strengths.
In terms of recruiting, were there certain things that a player had to have, or did you just have kind of an intuitive sense, this kid can play, this kid I'm not really going to waste a scholarship on?
Yeah, no, I think everyone that sits in the gym, when you picture an exposure event and you got the gym lined with coaches from high major to Division twos, to NAIAs, to junior college, and whoever else might be there evaluating the talent, you have to really know what you are looking for your program because the best players are going to stand out to everybody. I mean, those are easy. My wife can come in and recruit if that was how easy it was because she knows talent. But I think once you've identified what you're looking for, then I think you need to go in and be very, very thorough about, I'd say, multiple opportunities to watch the player. I think that's big because then certain things will really stick out and see if he fits into what you're looking for. The other thing I think where I may have I've done a pretty good job is really diving into the young man's background, his character, his like my mom always used to say, they need to come from good stock. They need to come from a home life, whether it's single parents or both parents, but that are teaching and have taught them the lessons that are going to just be the next leg of the relay race, so to speak. Because if you've got to do a redo on the first 17, 15, 16 years, however old the recruit is, that's going to be tough. You're going to waste a year or two. Well, I shouldn't say waste, but you're going to spend time when you could be moving forward. You're going to be stationary. So we talk to everybody. We talk to the custodian. We talk to the academic counselors. We talk to whoever might come across this kid, and even opposing coaches who'll always try to sell you their kid. But you still, they'll, at the end of the day, they're pretty good integrity about being honest about children. So I think all of those things play a role in finding the right fit for your program.
Coach, let's specifically zoom in on your days in Las Cruces, New Mexico. What was it about the job at New Mexico State that really intrigued you?
Well, when I was at University of Louisville with Coach Pitino, I had a great leader when it came to getting his guys jobs. And there were 2 or 3 jobs that had actually come up before New Mexico State that coach said, "Yeah, I don't like that one for you." I mean, this is how he is. He's like a savant of getting his guys placed, and not just placed, but in good situations. So coach didn't like a couple of the offers that, or some, they weren't actually full offers. One was, but he just said, Marv, we got to wait. We got to get you the right one. So when New Mexico State came open, the biggest intrigue was actually Mike Martin, the president at the time, and McKinley Boston, the athletic director at the time. They were both in full alignment with each other. They also gave me great alignment and the feeling that I would have great alignment with them as a result. I mean, in regards to, they had great relationships with the Board of Regents. They had great support on campus. So you knew it was going to be a big family, and you knew you were entering a smooth, landing in the sense of, being your first start. So that was probably the biggest thing. And then Coach Pitino had laid out a lot of, I won't go into all the details, but criteria that he thought were necessary to be successful at my first stop. And New Mexico State checked a lot of the boxes.
Obviously, you had tremendous success in Las Cruces, and it might be hard to narrow it down to just one. But if you have to choose the most satisfying moment, the biggest, maybe not biggest win in terms of like a season, but just a turning point where you really felt satisfied for your kids and for your coaches, what was the biggest, most satisfying moment you had in Las Cruces?
That's a great question. There were so many. I mean, we won 8 championships in 9 years between conference championships and regular seasons. So there was a lot of winning with a lot of people. And when I look at myself, I enjoyed them all because for obvious reasons, but I enjoyed them all, especially for my staff who worked relentless, and the players who were so diligent about putting in the extra work. So whenever you win, your whole team, the whole university, quite frankly, that's very supportive of men's basketball as well as some of the other sports. It's just you're bringing joy to a lot of people, and so it was never just me. But if you put a gun to my head and said, all right, you got to pick one, I'm probably going to lean towards a couple losses. I think which ironically is the oxymoron of what you're asking. But I think when we lost to San Diego State in overtime, and they were ranked, I think, third or second, and seeded second or third. When we lost to Michigan State by a couple points, we knew we were right there. We knew we had built something special to be a 15 seed or a 14 or 13 seed, and get that close to winning a game or two in the tournament. It was, even though they were losses, we knew that we were heading in the right direction. So they were satisfying, never the day of. But as you look back, you go, boy, we really gave it, we gave it a good shot, But I think every conference championship is just a little bit better than the regular championships, the tournament championships. Because the tournaments, there's the pomp and circumstance that comes with that, right? You have all the hoopla in Vegas, and you have your diehard boosters with you. So these are folks that you're close with, and it's just a big party, and everybody goes their separate ways, and we focus in on Selection Sunday. But for that night, there's nothing like it. So I guess I didn't give you one. So I guess I'm dead now. You shot me.
Well, Coach, we've got about a minute left, so I'm going to ask you a question. You've occupied the second chair on the bench, as the expression goes. You've occupied the first chair on the bench. Any chance we're going to see you occupying one of those chairs in the near future?
I'm sure I'm going to get back in. I'm going to be very selective I want to get back to New Mexico State alignment. And so I'm going to be very, very selective as to my next chapter, but I'm looking forward to it. It was good there wasn't a better year to take off than this past season. So I've been blessed. I'm being looked over even when I'm out of the game for a year.
Well, Coach, thank you so much for taking time to be with us on Zoom. Congratulations on the great success you've had in your career, and best of luck with the next chapter.
All right, thank you so much. And again, thanks for having me.
That is going to wrap up the Zoom portion of the episode. So what we're going to do is we're going to cue up a throwback episode featuring Mike McGuire talking to Sean Scanlon, and we'll do that right now.
Welcome to Sportslook. I'm your host, Mike McGuire, and once again, we've got a great show for you. This evening, we've got two guests. We've got assistant Zia basketball coach Dan Bizard, and he's going to fill us in on the Zias and everything that's transpired over the past couple of weeks and what's coming up. And then we're going to start the show off tonight with Greyhound basketball coach Sean Scanlon. And Sean, welcome back to Sportslook.
It's always good to be on with you, Mike.
Okay, let's bring everybody in the audience up to date. If they haven't been to Bench Club and they haven't read the newspapers, they've been snowed in somewhere, tell them what's happened over the last couple of weeks.
Well, unfortunately for us, our games results and outcomes have kind of gone like the weather has lately. It's kind of gone in a bad way. We've only, since you and I last spoke, I think we've played once. We had an open date because part of our combination of games this past week included Texas Women's University in the rotation, and of course they don't have a men's team, and so Tarleton came through, and we had a doubleheader on Thursday night, in which we were part of, and then we didn't play Saturday, and so we've played one game since you and I last talked.
Okay, now you know it's of course it's a tough year, and we've got guys that are just still banging away for you. You know, what's it going to come down to here in the last few weeks of the season? I mean, what do you guys need to accomplish?
Well, there's a lot of things. I think that if you're going to look, number one, obviously you look immediately in front of you, and that's this year. And believe it or not, the way things have fallen, and as early as we are in the conference schedule, a lot of things can still happen. We're still playing people in the first round for the first time. We've won a game. We are in position that if we can do some things, if things can fall right at home this week in the most recent games coming up, then we can get ourselves back in the middle of it. In the future, we're trying to see what parts of this puzzle we can base a future on. I think you obviously when you're building anything, you start from the foundation up, and we're looking to see who can be a part of the foundation. And it's a real test, and you find out a lot about players. I think it's easy to maybe be a player and a coach when things are going good. It's a lot more difficult when things aren't going as good. And from that standpoint, you kind of see what sort of tangible qualities these players have, because when things are going bad, the true competitors and the true competitive parts of these guys really comes out. And so we'll see where that is. I mean, it's easy when things are going well. It's easy to be a front runner.
Oh, yeah.
It's not as easy to come from behind and really dig deeper when things aren't going so well. And so we'll find out kind of what these guys are made of during this stretch of games. And believe it or not, with 8 games, or as of this moment, 7 games left on the schedule, a lot of things can happen, and we could even be fortunate enough to get ourselves back in this race as soon as this year. Now,
taking over a program such as Eastern's and kind of building on this foundation, you still have to be aware of what's out there. And of course, we talked before the show, and you've got your assistant Doug Dovlos out on the road recruiting, and you've been out there looking yourself. Tell us a little bit about what takes place during that and how much time's involved.
Well, first of all, we're in the middle of what we call the evaluation time, and you had asked in our conversation before the show about signing dates, and believe me, that seems so far off in the distance, as I'm sure it does for you too, unfortunately. You're ready to sign people. We're not ready yet. We're still trying to assess those kind of people we think can make a real difference. Doug has been gone. He'll be back in tomorrow night, which will mean he's been gone for a week. And he's been in East and Central Texas, mostly evaluating junior college prospects, but has been to a couple of high school games as well. Been real busy, and had a good trip to this point, and good trip at this time of year means we've been able to see a lot of people. I've been in the local area because someone needs to be here to conduct the day-to-day business in the office and practice and prepare for games. And but I've been able to go as far as I can get myself after practice and in between games. And so we're trying to see everybody we can see in more of a tight radius for me, and then I just sent him out to get to some more of the far-reaching areas that we need to get to. And then when our season does come to an end, then we'll both be, I'll be out for sure a lot, and we'll go out and try to clean up whatever we can in terms of seeing as many people. A lot of it's done over the phone with videotape right now, except in the case of Doug where he's out and trying to see as many people in person as he can.
And for any of those Eastern alumni that are tuned in, you know, if they've got hot leads for you, probably the best way to go is have those leads send you a videotape. And
in this day and age, the videotape is a pretty good tool. I mean, you can't see everything, but it's a great way to start. And I think you can tell whether a kid is worth pursuing further or not by what you can see on a videotape. And we get tons of them in, as all of us do in all the sports, and it's a place to start from.
Okay. Now this current group that we have, I mean, they've come a little ways, and they're starting to do some things for you, and so we have highlights, and we're going to go to those, and I want you to go ahead and comment on those and tell us what everybody's doing, what they're doing right, what they're doing wrong.
Be happy to. It looks like the opening tap to the game against Tarleton the other night, and we bring it down in what we call the secondary phase of the break. And the ball has just reversed twice, which is something we always try to get done. And Melvin Stewart, one of our new players this year, number 32, who just joined us, made a beautiful basket cut right there and made a nice kick-out pass to Rudy Charles for a three. Here we are in transition again. Rudy looks ahead, makes a nice lead pass to Melvin, and Melvin's fortunate enough and makes a nice indication back for the nice pass. We like to see that too. Here we are reversing back again, and Rudy, who's shown a pretty good propensity to penetrate and create, gets to the middle of the lane for a nice little jumper. Another play, which is a short combination that leads to a three-point shot where he gets fouled, and it develops into a four-point play. He hit the free throw as well. Nice basket cut by Melvin again. We reverse it back to the weak side, and he gets a mid-range jump shot. And again, so many good things in basketball happen off ball reversal, and that's exactly what happened in that play. Here Rudy creates a play off dribble penetration, and we get it back, and as you can see, the ball has changed sides again twice, and make a nice little flash cut. Brandon Ridenauer, our returning senior, one of the two guys that are back, for a little short jumper. Here we make a nice play off of a cut. And there's really some very nice fundamental things done in those clips. Basket cuts off the ball, some nice penetration by our point guard Rudy Charles, and all of them in these clips resulted in good outcomes. And I think, as we've talked about in previous times, if we can just get more of those clips to attach themselves in a consistent manner, then we'll have some better outcomes.
Okay, now one thing I noticed was your point guard's got to do so many different things, and it seems like Rudy's come along a little bit. He's giving you a little bit more offense. What are your feelings on that? I mean, a lot of times, you give something and you lose something, but let's hear it from the head coach.
Well, Rudy's done a good job. Rudy's been under, it's tough for two reasons. It's tough to be a freshman quarterback point guard setter. It's just hard when you get in a responsible position with no experience and you're young and you're green and you're thrown and you're basically fed to the wolves. Rudy's handled it really well. He's had a rough start, but he really has gotten better. He is an offensive threat. He is one of the better young point guards in the whole league, if not one of the better point guards, period, in terms of scoring. Because of what's happened off of his position, and we've been rather inconsistent in other parts of the floor, we haven't been able to see some of the other parts of the game that he can do well. Okay. And we're working on trying to develop that because we want him to be able to create as much offense for everybody else as he can for himself.
Okay, then he's going to get a chance to do that Saturday against Kingsville, right?
Against Kingsville he will, and hopefully that'll be another step forward.
Okay, what do we know about Kingsville?
Well, they're struggling right now. They've had an unfortunate start, but they were picked preseason coming in as being one of the upper echelon teams in our part of in the south zone of the Lone Star. And for whatever reason, it hasn't transpired. So unfortunately for us, they're going to be coming in here hungry, and we're hungry. So we're going to have two kind of teams that have been fighting from the short end of the stick, trying to improve their position in the game on Saturday night. And but they're a very talented team. They've not had their share of successes, much like us, and I think they're just looking for a crack in the door somewhere that they can come storming through.
Okay, now Once that's over with, then the following week, we just turn around and we head to their places. So who do we have first up on that trip?
We actually go back-to-back with Kingsville. They play here on Saturday. We turn around and play there the following Thursday. And then, of course, we trek on up to Commerce, back in my old stomping grounds. My first junior college job was at Paris Junior College, about 30 miles from Commerce. And I was there for 4 years, so I know that campus. And Kristen, my wife, got her master's at Commerce. So it's an area we know quite well, and I think we still know some of the instructors there at the university. But it'll be a tough trip. That's a tough back-to-back, as I'm sure you're well aware. That's a long run, and travel becomes an issue. But it's the way the schedule falls, and hopefully we can be going into that trip with some momentum.
Well, as always, we want to wish you the best of luck, and there's people out there in the viewing audience, and they're pulling for you, and they want you to get going on things, and wishing you the best, and like I said, come back with a couple victories.
I know that very much, and I'm hopeful in the very near future we can put a product together out there that they can be really excited about, not about what it's going to be, but about what it is. And that's our effort, and I certainly appreciate all of the kind remarks and all the great support we received even through this kind of difficult time.
Okay, great, Sean.
Last week on Sportslook, I did a female-oriented segment on pro football. I'm going to do the same for basketball. Okay, trivia question for today. Who was the first female drafted to play professional basketball? Now, some of you are probably trying to think back, okay, when was the WNBA started and who was the first? No, you'd have to go back to 1969. In 1969, the then San Francisco Warriors drafted a lady by the name of Denise Long. They drafted her out of Union-Witten High School in Marshall County, Iowa. Why did they draft an 18-year-old girl in 1969? Might have had something to do with the fact that in the state championship game in Iowa in 1968, her junior year, back when Iowa just had one classification, so every school in the state of Iowa was competing. In the championship game, she scored 100 points. So yeah, that girl could shoot. That was going to get her some attention. Well, that is going to wrap up in overtime, and that will wrap up a basketball-related episode of Sportslook. I'd like to thank Marvin Menzies for being my guest. I'd like to thank my crew for finding that flashback episode with Mike McGuire talking to Sean Scanlon. I'd like to thank my crew on the floor, directed by Ms. McKenzie again tonight. So for those aforementioned people, this is Doc Elder saying, so long.